So Devin, given the relative negative sentiment in the country, and you talk about sifting through the negative and finding the facts, how do we go about doing that? What does that practically look like for the everyday South African investor?
Yeah, it's difficult. And I think that's one of the reasons why people struggle with it so much, is it's not inherently obvious where you go to find these facts that back up how good or bad the country or our area is at the moment. So you have to look hard. You've got to remember that the mainstream media that we all consume, whether it's social media, News 24 pop-ups, or whatever the case is geared to sell bad news, because bad news sells. Unfortunately, good news is a lot harder to find, and you do need to look, and you need to look at reputable sources. A lot of what I've quoted today comes out of the banks, Stats SA, treasuries of the various provinces, development banks, those type of things. So my challenge for all of us is that we need to have a fact-based outlook on life that feeds our perception, and that is an intentional decision that you need to make, and not be swayed by the emotions and the noise that we're fed every day in dinner party conversations, but really being armed with the facts and being able to use those in our decision making. I will also say that it doesn't feel good in South Africa at the moment, so that sentiment is low, and in companies and individuals it's the lowest it's ever been. We're as depressed, in fact we're even more depressed than we were in the global financial crisis 10 years ago. The positive spin on that is we can't get much more depressed. We're at rock bottom. So it will only take a few things to happen, whether it's a few prosecutions or Eskom to get sorted, for that to move up very quickly. And that acts as very quick economic stimulus that feeds into the economy. It'll allow people and businesses to start investing again. And I think we'll look back quite quickly and be like, well, it wasn't as bad as we thought, and it needed a few things. Maybe it's President Trump resolves his trade war, whatever it is. The point is that the policy and sentiment uncertainty at the moment can change very quickly.
So it really does take a deliberate effort on our part, because
Yes.
as we read newspapers and have conversations around a braai, invariably it is on the side of negativity. But I think to be deliberate and conscious about actually let's go out and find those positive sentiments, because they're there. I mean, from your perspective, what are you feeling positive about? What are you feeling optimistic about in our country?
Yeah, well, what's interesting, I did a drive to Tata yesterday, and I drove and I just thought it was so beautiful, and what a beautiful country we actually live
Absolutely.
in, and all the people I greeted me back smiling, so I think maybe 10% of our country is 90% positive. It's beautiful,
Yes.
and you just drive there with your eyes open, and don't let the news inform us what our eyes should be seeing, but let our eyes see for itself. And honestly, it was stunning driving through the Transkei. It's just such a beautiful country. And then you come back today to the coast and you just see how beautiful it is. I mean, I've seen the sea, it's just beautiful.
I think also in context of perception or misperception. And maybe I'd like to ask Devin your call on perceptions, our perceptions as a general, and misperceptions. Just your comment on that.
So I think we have the responsibility to inform the perception that we engage the world around us with, and I think too often we rely on our emotions to inform that, and not the hard and fast facts. And I think that's unfortunate. It's not a South African phenomenon, although in South Africa we're particularly good at it. But worldwide we have a skewed perception of what's happening in the world based on emotions and not facts. And we need to take responsibility to arm ourselves with those facts and share those with the people we're talking about. It's very easy to get into these negative discussions that are highly emotive, anecdotal, but often not constructive and based on any amount of fact. So I would definitely caution on doing that. And I think also to the point is that I think in the political space we've got kind of the two political extremes screaming at each other, and what we forget is they get all the news time, but that doesn't represent the majority of South Africans. The majority of South Africans are sitting in the moderate middle, fairly silent and unnewsworthy, and they're wanting a better life for their families, they're wanting to build and grow. And I think we need to realize that the news headlines don't represent the average man in the street. We've got a wonderful people, we've got a wonderful country, we've got our problems that we all need to put our shoulder to the wheel and sort out. But I genuinely feel that this crisis, which is a crisis of confidence that we have, should not be wasted in looking for solutions to address that.
So Devin, to summarize, where would you point us in terms of identifying those accurate fact-based sources of information to draw a more accurate conclusion of our country?
So a couple of things. You've got to get data from reputable sources. I think you can't rely on social media. If that's your only news source, I've got news for you. That's not news. I think you've also got to understand that general mainstream media needs to sell. They're sales organizations, so they're going to serve whatever gets traction. We need to look for reputable data sources, some of which I've mentioned. You also need to not look at facts in isolation. You need to look at long-term trends. The perfect example was the GDP growth for the first and second quarter this year. We had a 3.1% contraction quarter on quarter. The next quarter was up 3.1. Either of those two numbers in isolation give a misleading picture. We're in a low growth trend, but it's not as bad or as worse as both of those numbers picture. So, don't believe numbers in isolation. Look for the trends, and I think it's very important to be armed with those when going into decisions and in engagements with people.
Great. Thank you, Devin.
Cool.